Welcome to week 2 of the Stronger Gymnastics series. If you're just tuning in, this is part of a 10-week series where I work towards specific gymnastics goals. If you haven't seen week 1 yet, make sure you start from there, as that way you'll get the most out of this series. Thanks so much for the incredible response to week 1. As promised, I'll now go through and answer some of your questions. Jesus Rojas asked, where you're doing the Superman hold, it seems like you have poor thoracic mobility. Is that right? How's your bridge? Well, yeah, you're actually right. My thoracic mobility is something I have been working on. In particular for those Supermans though, I think it's actually my shoulder flexion that's lacking. It's definitely something I need to improve on, and I've been working on it very hard. And here's a more recent picture of my bridge, which I posted on my Instagram. You can see I really need to improve that. AM asks, do you rely on the feedback from coaches and teammates, heightened body awareness, or videos to assess your form, shape, technique? Well, I definitely encourage feedback from coaches and teammates if possible. It's always really useful to get outside feedback because you mightn't have been thinking in a certain way. However, I find most of the time it's up to myself to critique myself because the coach or the teammates might be busy doing something else. Most often, I use my phone to film myself and I analyze it on the spot. That works really well for me. I enjoy the break because you're seeing what you just did, and it gets me really motivated. Every time I see myself doing something wrong or something that could be better, you see it and you're like, all right, I have to fix that. Hristian Spazov, how are you, mate? It's been a while. He had a really long question, really good question as well. So definitely have a read of the response from Sol Hermelin. It's a really good point, and I agree with Sol in what he says. That being said, I've seen gymnasts of all ages consistently getting injured. So while I respect your comments, and I'm sorry to see that you have been injured, I still maintain adults can definitely train gymnastics and achieve great results. You just need to be smart about your training. Just get guidance early on, be smart, listen to your body. Shock Slice, nice name there, mate. He asked, what do you do for a living, and how do you find time for this outside of making a living? I worked full-time for about 2 years after completing university. However, when this started to encroach on my training, I quit my job because I made a promise to myself that no matter what, I'd never let work negatively affect my training. Shortly after that, I also founded a business with a friend where we manage and invest in real estate. We both had the same understanding that we'd have this business just so that we could pay the bills while maximizing our time to pursue our other passions. Feel free to ask any other questions, and I might just answer them in week 3. Let's get straight into session 6. I warmed up with some handstand pivots with the focus on a very straight handstand and maintaining strong body tension during the pivot. This week the focus has shifted to going for more skills that I can't do rather than the emphasis on perfecting the basics that last week had. It's always good to mix it up between the two. Stronger basics help with everything overall, but of course you need to scare yourself with new skills if you are to achieve them as well. I hadn't trained check much before this, so it was scary to balance my full body weight over just one handle. Each successive attempt, I was getting more confident and I was getting more weight over the single handle. To help understand the movement better, I also trained it on the buck, as it's still the same movement but much simpler, as the hand placement is not as specific and you don't need to lean quite as much. I was concentrating on trying to open my hips as much as possible during the check. Finally, the open hips clicked and my check immediately improved. We finished the pommel session on the ground pommel, as this forces you to stretch out more during basic circles. It's very important I stretch out more, as it makes all skills, including check, easier and of course more beautiful. You can hear my feet rubbing the mat on every circle. I still need to circle a lot higher. Again, I was working the same simple sequence as last week on the rings. I added in a controlled negative from handstand to support through planche to further refine the transitions and to improve my strength. I'm currently being cautious not to do too many swing elements to allow my shoulder to recover. So instead, my focus here is doing each movement to perfection consistently. I was treating every sequence as if it were a routine in a competition. It became more challenging to stay focused on the minor details as I became more fatigued.
I know you can't get enough of my sound.
I warm up with front tuck before moving on to the half turn out. I'm still struggling to complete the half turn. I'm currently twisting much too late. I should be initiating when upside down rather than just before landing. I worked some dive rolls, aiming to go as high as possible. These are useful as the heel drive is the same in a layout, just more vigorous. I then started trying to slightly over-rotate the dive rolls. At this point, Charles thought I was ready to attempt the layout with his spot. The main thing I need to focus on is faster heel drive. I was ecstatic to land one, even with a spot. It will only get better from here. We finished today's session with another of Charles' strength circuits. For my own strength training, I always do lower rep, high intensity exercises. However, Charles' circuits are much more higher rep and endurance. They're definitely challenging in a different way, and I enjoy the variation. The first exercise was shoulder rolls across the floor. Unfortunately, I lacked the flexibility to do this, so instead worked roll to straddle sit. But even that I couldn't hold. Definitely a weak point that I need to improve on. Next was 2 laps of tricep walks. These are great for building up V-sit and mana strength. This exercise is great to work body tension and also rebounding off the floor. You can see the difference between my rebound and the coach's. We did 5 laps each. I was really struggling to hold a handstand on the floor today. I find it much more comfortable on the parallettes or rings. Even so, this was unacceptable. I expect better from myself. Flares are slowly improving. They're starting to feel a little more powerful, though there are still countless areas I'm working to improve. Primarily, higher hips at the front and pressing my shoulders down. On days without gymnastics sessions, I was training flares wherever I could. My splits are actually not quite as good as they were last week. I find my progress with flexibility is never linear. You just need to stay motivated and consistent, though I was disappointed to see this lack of progress given I was stretching every day. Overall, it was a good session. I'm happy with the front layout progress, and I'm starting to see more progress on flares. Rings handstand is already looking much better than it ever has been. It is now about 2 AM, just about to do my stretching for the day. I've been trying to do it when I wake up, and then also just before I go to bed. It's a new challenge I've been overcoming. Sometimes I just want to go to sleep, but to achieve something you've never achieved before, you need to be willing to do something you've never done before. Anyway, now very interesting point on this, active versus passive flexibility. So the difference here is passive stretching is when you sort of just push your leg or something into a position where it stretches, whereas active flexibility is you're sort of using your muscle to pull it into the stretch. So one example is if you're doing splits, you sink into it, but you're using your legs to hold your body weight, so there's still the muscles are working and also stretching. Jordan Garcia, he's made amazing progress on his splits, and just today he released a video essentially doing the middle splits, which I greatly respect. Great work, mate, that's really impressive. He said he did strictly active stretching. It has been much more effective as well for me when I'm doing active stretching, so I'm going to be implementing that strictly from here on. So let's go stretch, and then let's go to bed. Well, it's now 3 AM and I just finished my stretching routine. I had a massive epiphany tonight. Thank you so much, Jordan Garcia. You are bang on about active flexibility being much more useful than passive flexibility. I'll quickly run you through just what I did and what I will be doing every day. Particularly what I noticed was I got a lot hotter than I normally do. I was on the verge of sweating. It's now coming into winter here in Australia. The weather's been pretty comfortable, but just from stretching I was getting super hot. For the front splits I used my sliders and I put pressure on my hamstring and hip flexor. I noticed my hip flexor was far more uncomfortable than my hamstrings were, and I believe that's because in the past I've always had my back leg bent, whereas here I was trying to keep it fully straight so it was pushing against my body weight. And I have heard this in the past, but finally I've seen the light and I'm going to do this. This is the only thing I'll be doing from now on. I'll never be relaxing in the splits unless maybe I just feel like seeing how that goes, but I certainly won't be doing that to train them. For the middle splits I actually took the sliders away completely because it would be too intense if I had the sliders, and even with that higher amount of friction I was really pushing hard in my groin to hold my body weight up completely through my legs whilst stretching. I was probably about 10 or 15 degrees higher than the lowest I could possibly go, and that's just because that was the point where I really felt like I was struggling to just hold my body weight up. And that just shows you the benefit of active flexibility. That demonstrates that my muscles in my groin weren't strong enough to hold my whole body weight at that lower level that I was going to, and therefore I sort of have no right to go that low. I should really only go as low as I can actually resist my own body weight. These heel drives work active flexibility, as the stretch is occurring as a direct result of the muscles pulling against each other and stretching at the same time. With this stretch it's hard to tell, but I'm pushing against the floor and I'm trying to push my feet that way against the stretch. Just like any active stretch, you need to push against the stretch with the muscles that are being stretched. You can just hear the discomfort. I also started doing the same thing for my rotator cuffs and my lats. This is the wall rotator cuff stretch. I'm hoping that this will drastically improve over the course of the series. I need to keep my lower back on the wall while simultaneously keeping the elbows and the hands also on the wall. I was so unflexible that I had to arch my back, and even then my elbows and hands would creep off the wall. Going forward, my main focus should be keeping the lower back on the wall and having my elbows and hands as close to the wall as possible rather than the other way around. Dislocates in front of a wall, ensure you don't lean forward to assist the movement. I have a stick that's marked in 10 centimeter increments. Each consecutive rep, I bring my hands a little closer to slowly increase the intensity of the stretch. As with all stretching and mobility work, it's important to progress slowly. I did this last rep on the side to show the exercise from a different angle. Also, my lat flexibility, I've only just realised in the last week or so, is terrible. If you don't have flexible lats, your scapula can't move as much. And you'll even notice with like professional gymnasts such as Zanetti, when he hangs under the rings, it almost looks like his face is getting squashed by his arms. So this is the stretch I've come up with for my lats. I actually sort of just made this up myself. I had a quick look online for active lat stretching, but wasn't really pleased with what I found, and I think what I'm doing is good because I'm using my own muscles to pull the lat into that position, and I really feel an uncomfortable stretch. So that's got to help, right? So it's 3 o'clock, I'm going to go to bed. Night night. The focus of today's high bar session was top change. I warmed up with front giants. I still need more dish, and I need to open my shoulders more into a handstand at the top of the giant. There are a lot of things I need to improve to get the top change, such as driving my heels faster over the top, pushing my shoulders open during the turn, and turning faster. There's so much to think about in just half a second, but that goes for any good skill. These are slowly getting better in the sense that my shoulders are starting to stay more open during the turn. In preparation for turning the other way over the top of the bar, the blind change, I was working these swing half turns, focusing on trying to maintain a tight body shape during the turn. I should also be finishing the turn in dish shape, though I currently arch a little. My main focus today was pushing the bar away through my shoulder during the turn and keeping my chest in. With these scissors, I now understand that I need to lock my elbow and use my shoulder to move the scapula to absorb the force. However, I still can't do it. It seems really simple to just keep your arm straight and move the scapula, but it's taking me quite a bit of practice to get it right. I'm really just doing the simplest swing I can think of and just trying to lock that feeling in so it becomes a habit. I try to do it with massive extension. It currently throws off my balance, but I need to get used to this so it improves.
It does, it looks good too. Down your hips are open, like you're opening your hips. Keep that back leg up higher.
Man, I get such a pump in my chest from that. Seems so obvious and simple, but I'm just not used to that motion, and because of that, it's really fatiguing for me. It's definitely what I need to make these scissors really nice and really high. Just like last week, I'm focusing on trying to open my hips more in these loops. I still pike in every single one. These have already improved as I'm consistently getting 2 now, where last week I was getting just 1. Near the end of this session, some of the loops were starting to feel smooth, which is a sign that the form is getting better. Once again, I was working this front handspring drill primarily to improve my vault. As always, I need to open my shoulders more to have a stronger pop out of the board. You can see how close they are in some of these attempts. This shoulder angle is sapping all my power. So I'm about to head off to training today. It's going to be about a 6-hour session today because 4 hours of normal training and then I'm actually going to do some strength after it. Anyway, I want to make sure I don't get hungry during, so I'm having some protein. And I thought I'd try out some of this vegan protein. I've never had vegan protein before. It sounds a bit unique. Oh, yeah. That's not great. It seems very granularly as well. That's not good. It tastes like flour. It's going to be a great session. So I got my energy drink and then I also like just a banana and a bit of chocolate milk in case I feel a bit hungry. I started the session off with back uprise, trying to get it higher and higher as my goal is back uprise to handstand. Clearly, I need a lot more power. I alternated between sets of back uprise and handstand pivot. Upper arm swings are also a good way to improve swing power toward the back uprise to handstand. Once I achieve shoulder press on floor, I intend on making my P-bar mount kip through single bar, shoulder press to handstand. These next few exercises were breaking the skill down into various stages. Punch front to punch front is a great drill for aerial awareness and confidence, and it's important to master as I intend on connecting bigger skills in my routines next year.
Yeah, a bit better.
Unfortunately, The twist on the front half just wasn't making sense today, so I moved on to front layout. The main critique is I need to keep my head back, looking at the floor during the layout. We worked 6 bales in a row, 3 backwards and 3 forwards. My shape and body tension are looking quite good, so the higher volume was a good challenge to stay in the correct body shapes, even while fatigued. As always, I still need greater shoulder mobility to hold the perfect handstand. On these front bales, I need to get my chest in more and open my shoulders more. It should be a nice disc shape on the way down to ensure there is no jerk when coming through the bottom. I filmed some sets from my strength session just to give you a little idea of what I was working on. Maltese box press is working towards my Maltese and planche goals. I was trying to do a full range of motion handstand push-up with ideal form, followed by 4 6-second negatives.
It's 4:51 a.m. Alright, active stretching is amazing. I don't think I'm ever going to do passive stretching again. Thank you, Jordan Garcia, again. My muscles feel like silk. Like they really feel smooth. Same with my shoulders as well. Just reaching up to get something off a high shelf. My shoulders just feel more comfortable and stable. Today's session was one of those ones which didn't start out very well at all, and when I started stretching at the start, I just put my wrist on the floor like this and had a pain shoot up my forearm. It's very hard when you're mentally ready to do your swings and your dismounts and whatever else you're working on, when you realize you can't do it. Well, you can, but you're going to risk making a minor injury significant. It was really annoying at the time, but I decided I'll just try to see what doesn't aggravate it, and I'll do that instead. And I focused on my back uprise, which I haven't done recently, and I was actually quite happy with the progress. If you have like a minor injury or something that stops you from doing an exercise that you'd like to do, instead of getting annoyed, try to stop and think about what you can do. Anyway, and after all that, I was actually very happy with the progress I'd made, and my wrist feels fine now, so it's win-win. So I had Olympic lifting training this morning. I was pretty disappointed. My shoulder was feeling just like it was about a month ago. I think it's because I've been trying to stretch it using the stick, going through that dislocate motion that you saw me doing previously. The start of that range of motion does hurt the shoulder a bit, although I was just sort of pushing through it just because I wanted to stretch my shoulders. What I find most annoying and concerning is I don't know what the problem is. If I know what muscle it is or something like that, then I'm happy because I know I need to rest that muscle and I know what to do to avoid it. So yeah, since it hasn't recovered yet, I'm going to give it, I don't know, a week or 2 of that where I just stop if I feel anything. So off to some strength training, and yeah, a little bit disappointed tonight. You're going to have those times in your training where you need to stop training and let an injury rest. I guess this is a good example of how annoying that can be, but also what you need to do to overcome it. Hopefully in a week or so it's a thing of the past, but given it's been annoying me for a month, I don't think that's going to happen.
Fortunately, the shoulder issue didn't affect flares, so I spent more time than usual training them. I could also still train impossible dips without discomfort. However, the exercises that I was not able to train included Azarian, cross press, reverse muscle up, planche, handstand push-ups, and front lever negatives.
I'm about to go to bed, clearly. I was just stretching my lats. I felt like it shifted my shoulder in a kind of nice way. I don't know how to explain it, but it kind of felt like the whole humerus shifted almost. It didn't hurt at all, but it felt interesting, and it's definitely the same area that's given me all these problems. So, my new hypothesis of what has caused this problem is I recently started stretching everything, including my shoulders, a lot more. I think I might have just opened it up a little bit, flexibility-wise, and therefore it's not as stable because it's not as tight as it used to be. And I think I'm just adjusting to that new level of flexibility.
It's been a great week of progress, though my shoulder is a concern with this ongoing injury. Remember to post any questions you may have, and I will try to answer them in next week's episode. Next week, epic progress is made, particularly on the Pommel horse, as I get hugely motivated and inspired. See you next week for week 3 of the Stronger Gymnastics series.
Just so you know, he's doing his research.